One day, a selfish dog was looking for a comfortable place to take a nap. He jumped into a manger full of hay, which was the food for the oxen. "This is a soft and cozy bed," the dog thought to himself, as he curled up and settled down for a long sleep. The manger was located in a large old barn where several farm animals lived together. The sun was shining brightly outside, and the dog felt very content in his warm, quiet spot. He had spent the morning chasing after butterflies and running round the farm, so he was quite tired and ready for a good rest. The smell of the sweet hay was pleasant, and the dog quickly drifted off into a deep slumber, not thinking about who the hay was actually for or whether his presence would be a problem for anyone else. He was only concerned with his own comfort and finding the best possible place to sleep, and the manger seemed perfect for his needs. The dog stretched out his legs, taking up as much space as he could, and let out a contented sigh before falling completely asleep, dreaming of chasing rabbits and getting treats from the farmer. After a long day of working hard in the fields, a hungry ox returned to the barn. He was tired and looking forward to eating his dinner from the manger. The ox had spent the entire day pulling a heavy plough under the hot sun, and his muscles ached. He was very thirsty and, most of all, extremely hungry. All he could think about was the delicious fresh hay waiting for him in his manger. As the ox slowly walked towards his feeding spot, he saw the dog lying comfortably in the middle of the hay. At first, the ox was not concerned. He thought the dog was just resting for a moment and would move aside when he approached. The ox walked up to the manger and politely lowered his head, trying to get a mouthful of the hay without disturbing the sleeping dog too much. He was a gentle and patient animal and did not want to cause any trouble. He just wanted to eat his well-deserved meal and rest for the night. The ox waited for a moment, expecting the dog to wake up and move, but the dog remained sound asleep. The ox gently nudged the side of the manger with his nose, hoping the small movement would be enough to alert the dog to his presence. But the dog only grumbled in his sleep and did not wake up. As the ox tried to eat some of the hay, the dog suddenly woke up. He was very angry that his sleep had been disturbed. He stood up on the hay and started to bark loudly and fiercely at the poor ox. "Go away," he snarled, showing his sharp teeth. "This is my bed, and you are not allowed to touch it." The dog was being very aggressive, and he snapped at the air every time the ox moved his head even slightly closer to the manger. The ox was very surprised by the dog's angry reaction. He tried to explain that the hay was his food and that he was very hungry after a long day of work. "But that is my dinner," the ox said in a calm and gentle voice. "I am very hungry, and I need to eat so I can work again tomorrow." He looked at the dog with pleading eyes, hoping the dog would understand and show some kindness. However, the dog had no interest in listening to the ox's explanation. He did not care that the ox was hungry or that the hay was not even something he could eat. The dog himself could not eat the hay, but he refused to let the ox eat it either. He was determined to keep the manger all to himself, simply because he had decided it was his resting place. He continued to bark and growl, guarding the hay as if it were the most valuable treasure in the world, preventing the hungry ox from getting even a single bite. The ox, unable to get to his food, stepped back. He was a peaceful animal and did not want to fight with the angry dog. He looked at the dog and said sadly, "How selfish you are." The ox could not understand why the dog was behaving in such a mean and unreasonable way. He stood there for a moment, his stomach rumbling with hunger, watching the dog who was now sitting proudly on top of the pile of hay. The ox tried one last time, speaking in a very patient tone. "You cannot eat the hay yourself, so why won't you let me eat it? It is of no use to you, but it is everything to me." The dog just barked back in response, as if to say that he did not care at all. He enjoyed the feeling of power he had over the large ox. The ox realized that it was useless to argue with such a selfish creature. He felt a deep sense of disappointment and sadness. He had worked hard all day for the farmer, and his only reward at the end of the day was his meal, which was now being denied to him for no good reason. The other animals in the barn started to gather around, watching the strange scene. A few chickens clucked nervously, and a sheep in a nearby pen looked on with wide, curious eyes. They all saw how the dog was preventing the ox from eating, even though the dog had no need for the hay himself. Tired and defeated, the ox slowly walked away from the manger, still hungry. He went to a corner of the barn to lie down, his stomach empty. The dog watched him go and then lay back down in the hay, with a satisfied look on his face. He had successfully protected his bed and had driven away the much larger animal. He felt proud of himself, not realizing how unfair and cruel he had been. The ox lay in the corner, his head down, feeling weak and disheartened. He would have to wait until the morning and hope that the farmer would give him some food before he had to go back to work in the fields again. The dog, meanwhile, fell back asleep in the comfortable manger, completely untroubled by the hunger of the animal he had just wronged. The moral of the story is that people should not be selfish and prevent others from enjoying something that is of no use to them.